Good morning. Welcome to One Baha'i, that semi-regular podcast in which I just share some thoughts about the Baha'i faith. It's nothing official, just one individual. So, you may have noticed in the last few days, around the world, people are asking for the social distancing rules to be loosened in the name of some form of liberty. So this morning, I thought I would take a look at the idea of liberty and see what Baha'u'llah has to say about it. Now, as you can imagine, one of the first things that I found was that passage, that section of a few paragraphs in the Baha'u'llah. Let's see, paragraphs 122 to 125. So I'd like to take a look at what he says about it. But before I do, I just want to say that this idea of what he says about liberty has to be balanced with what he also says about a just government. So those two have to go together. Now, I thought I would also look up some words, so I'm going to be looking down quite a bit today. I guess I usually do. It's sort of a habit of mine. But in the Baha'u'llah, the very paragraph after which he mentions to turn to Abdul-Baha, the very next paragraph he says, "Consider the pettiness of men's minds. They ask for that which injureth them, and cast away the thing that profiteth them. They are indeed of those that are far astray. We find some men desiring liberty and priding themselves therein. Such men are in the depths of ignorance." So I have to just remind me, that it's not only in the United States that we're seeing these protests. It's not only in Canada that we're seeing these protests. Around the world, we are seeing people clamoring to be able to interact with each other the way that they used to a few months ago. So this is, from what I can see, it's a global phenomenon. Liberty. Well, no, actually, pettiness. Pettiness is the first word that I found interesting there. Consider the pettiness of men's minds. Pettiness is a concern with trivialities, insignificant things. When I read the posts by people who are clamoring for this liberty, they want to be able to go to the bar. They want to be able to go to sports events. They want to be able to go to concerts again. Well, I totally understand this. But is that more important than people's lives? I love the word pettiness in this example. Baha'u'llah says that they are that consider the pettiness of men's minds. People aren't thinking about the lives that are at stake. They're concerned about being able to go dancing. And then he says, we find some men desiring liberty. Now, I grew up in the States. I think liberty is a marvelous thing. But this got me to ask, well, what is liberty? I think of it as freedom from slavery. But it isn't. Liberty, according to the dictionary, is the power to act as one pleases. The root of the word liberty, libra, is freedom. So we can see it as the freedom to do whatever you want. Over the last couple of days, as various friends have posted these things about wanting to have true liberty, to be free to do whatever they want, I remind them about the rules of the road. When you're driving on the road, unbridled liberty would mean you don't have to pay attention to stop signs or follow a speed limit. You wouldn't need to obey the lanes, or you wouldn't even need to drive on the road. You could go wherever you want, drive as fast as you want, do whatever you want. Can you imagine how many deaths would be the result of this? So we have all, as a society, agreed to live according to certain rules of the road so that we can have the greatest liberty on the roads. This, to me, is a great example of liberty in its truest sense. So Baha'u'llah is saying, we find some men desiring liberty and priding themselves therein. Now, such men are in the depths of ignorance. So he goes on, he says, liberty must, in the end, lead to sedition, whose flames none can quench. You know, there are certain words that I always pay attention to when I see them in the writings. Must is one of them. It's not an option. He doesn't say, liberty might lead to sedition. It could lead to sedition. No. It must lead to sedition. Okay, what is sedition? Well, glad I looked it up. Agitation against the state or conduct leading to public disorder. And I was thinking, why would that be? Why must liberty lead to sedition? And again, this is a very specific definition of liberty. It's that freedom to do whatever you want. So the government, one of the things that the government does, and again, we're talking about a just government here, one of the things that a government should do is put in place rules that help establish order. Well, those rules mean, by definition, you can't do whatever you feel like. You can only do those things that are within the bounds of a stable society. So if you really pride yourself on liberty, being able to do whatever you want, in the end, you must eventually start to rebel against your government. You must eventually move towards public disorder, because if you're living in a society, that means that there are rules, and those rules need to be obeyed. So he says, liberty must in the end lead to sedition, whose flames none can quench. Thus warneth you he who is the reckoner, the all-knowing. We could talk about the beauty of those two attributes of God and how they apply in this arena, but let's move on. Know ye that the embodiment of liberty and its symbol is the animal. That which beseemeth man is submission unto such restraints as will protect him from his own ignorance and guard him against the harm of the mischief maker. Okay, so now I'm looking at the current social regulations that are being done because of COVID-19. And I'm thinking, I don't know much about epidemiology. Epidemics, it's not my field of expertise. I don't know about them. I don't know the details. But there are people, there are groups that have made this their life study. I'm ignorant. They are knowledgeable. And when they tell me, stay 2 meters away from people, when they tell me, wash your hands when you come inside, don't touch your face before you wash your hands, wear a mask, I have to trust them. They're experts in their field. So they are helping protect me from my own ignorance. I don't know all the details about how diseases are spread. I'm learning, but I'm still not an expert. I'm only learning the little pieces that they're telling me so that I can understand. To truly understand would take years of research, but I'm going to trust them. That which beseemeth man is submission under such restraints as will protect him from his own ignorance. I really want to say thank you to all those people out there, all those experts who are guiding society through this crisis. Baha'u'llah goes on and says, "Liberty causeth man to overstep the bounds of propriety and to infringe on the dignity of his station. It debaseth him to the level of extreme depravity and wickedness." It's really strange, Now I'm going to look at a couple of the examples from the US that I've seen recently. And again, they're not the only examples. They're just the ones that I'm most familiar with. Excuse me. I'm seeing people on the steps of government buildings waving machine guns, holding Nazi flags, saying COVID-19 is a myth. These people are crazy. Why would you go onto the steps of U.S. government buildings waving Nazi flags, claiming that this disease is all made up? I don't get it. This liberty causes man to overstep the bounds of propriety, to infringe on the dignity of his station. Debases him to the level of extreme depravity and wickedness. I shake my head when I look at these news items. I can't believe how debased some people are acting right now. Baha'u'llah goes on and he says, "Regard men as a flock of sheep that need a shepherd for their protection." In this instance, I am a sheep. I will freely admit that. I do not know the details of the spread of a virus. I need guidance. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. None of us are all-knowing. We each have our area of expertise. I'm a fashion designer. I'm a jeweler by trade. And when I'm teaching my students, I will sometimes watch as they start to make their pieces in a slightly convoluted way. So I tell them, here is an easier way to do it. You do this, you do that. And then they get it. They are, sheep in that instance because they need guidance to be able to do what they're hoping to do. In this case, we're hoping to survive. We're hoping to have as few people die as possible. We're sheep. We need guidance in order to do that. And then he says, "This verily is the truth, the certain truth." He says, "We approve of liberty in certain circumstances and refuse to sanction it in others." That's all I really wanted to share. He goes on a little bit more about liberty. But these were the points that I wanted to share. Liberty in certain circumstances is a beautiful thing. In other circumstances, not so. You do not want unbridled liberty on the road. You will never be able to drive anywhere. You'll end up killing people. So we agree that liberty needs to be curtailed when driving on the roads. That was really the main point I wanted to share. But then I was saying my prayers this morning and I ran across this phrase from Abdul-Baha. "O Lord, the ocean of rebellion is surging, and these tempests will not be stilled, save through thy boundless grace which hath embraced all regions." When I ran across that line, I was again reminded of these various news items that I'm watching on the internet today. And I'm thinking about liberty, and I'm thinking when liberty is appropriate. I'm thinking about the importance of a just government. And I was also thinking about a comment I made the other day one which a friend and I are taking semi-seriously, actually. Somebody was quoting the Declaration of Independence, and I said, well, we don't need that. We need a declaration of interdependence now. So a friend and I have started looking over the U.S. Declaration of Independence, and we're rewriting it as a declaration of interdependence. I find this idea of liberty, and when you need it, and when you should be restricted from it, and the importance of a government and the role of government so fascinating today. I really look forward to seeing where all of this leads. It's an incredible crisis in which we're in the midst of right now, and we know that the victory is around the corner. I'm very curious to see what that victory will look like. Well, thank you for joining me today. We'll talk again tomorrow.